Hi, I know I've been talking about the heaters, but I want to talk about something else. Yeah, it seems like every time I make a video, I have a bowling sink here. But what if you don't have fuel? You don't have electricity? I do have my vent on up here. I apologize. I want to make sure any smoke or anything goes out. Our smoke detector is very, very touchy, so it goes off like at the drop of a hat. But what do you do if all you have is stuff at home? Basic general stuff. Now you can make one of these small alcohol stoves. That's what they're called. Now to actually cook with this, you actually need to have the pan raised up a good amount so this doesn't choke out. But can it produce any type of heat? That's what we're talking about, heat. Now, first of all, to make one of these stoves, you just need an empty can and a roll of toilet paper. Now this can, I believe, was Chef Boyardee ravioli or spaghetti. Any empty can. Now what you do is you take a toilet paper roll, pull out the center core, the cardboard, smash the roll, and then shove it in a can as much as you can. Now you may have to trim off some of the toilet paper to get it to fit, but you can see it's packed in there pretty tight. I have used this before in one of my older videos. In fact, this has been sitting under our sink here for I don't know how long. But since we're talking about emergency situations and possibly heat, well, what can you do with something like this if you have no other options? Will this put out any amount of heat whatsoever? Now, I understand if you had it to where you had a rack or something raised up over this, and you set the foil heater over it to where this would not die, because if you put something directly over it, it's going to choke it out. The alcohol will choke out. So you have to have it raised probably about 1.5 inches. If you had a way to raise this, had some type of rack or something over here where you could actually set the heater above it, especially just the foil heater, that would produce a lot more heat. But what can you do with this? Well, if you have no other options, then yes, you can make one of these. Now it's going to be an open flame. It's not going to flare up like gasoline will, but you can use other things besides alcohol. You can use some types of liquor with a high enough alcohol content that burns to actually make one of these with. Now I understand that would get expensive, but in an emergency situation, you use what you got. Now I would not use anything that you put in your car. I understand a lot of people use things like heat, that's H-E-E-T, certain types of heat for small alcohol stoves or alcohol burner stoves. You want something that's not going to kill you and you can burn in the house, basically. That's why I'm using isopropyl alcohol. Now this is not a heater design I've designed. This type of thing has been around for a very long time, but if you have no other way to get heat inside and you can't start a fire outside, will this help at all? Well, the answer is yes, it will help a little bit. Now, if you had this in something of a microclimate, make sure it's on something, one, that's not going to burn. Two, make sure if you're in a microclimate, you have fresh air coming in. If you made your microclimate, like here, I could have a microclimate go from here down and have it sealed off here, and just have like this area here as a microclimate. And it's in a really bad situation, this will put out some heat. Now I feel the heat about here. It is not nearly as much heat as the heaters I made, but this will help you in some situations. Make sure you get plenty of air. Now remember, at least a 1/2 inch of air. If you're going to put it against the wall, probably about a 1/2 inch of air coming in and some air going out, okay? You don't want to completely close yourself off, especially with an open flame of something burning. That's just not smart. But this will put out some heat. Once again, this is not a typical heater. This is strictly for emergencies only. I mean, you don't want to have an open flame just, this high if you're not going to be able to control it, and if you're not going to be able to watch it. And you keep this away from anything that can burn. Once again, it is putting out some heat. I mean, I can put my hand probably about right there, and the flames are almost hitting my hand sometimes. But it is putting out some warmth. Now, you will go through your alcohol pretty quick, and whatever you don't use will evaporate. Once again, this is not my heater design. These types of things have been around a very long time. But in a really bad situation where you absolutely need some type of heat, something in your house that will burn, that a lot of people have, a simple roll of toilet paper and a single can hopefully can get you through a bad situation to where it can at least take the chill out of the air and you can survive. Once again, in a microclimate, something much smaller than an open area. I mean, look at how big our apartment's really small. That's our wall right over there. It's probably 25 feet to that wall. Maybe. And this is our entire apartment. Now, I would not try to heat up this entire apartment with even the heaters I make, or one you can purchase that goes on a camp stove. I would not try to heat our apartment with something like this. But if I took and I closed off maybe 4 or 5 feet, all the way to the ceiling, and came over here and closed it all off, that's only 4 or 5 feet wide. But see, we have like 8-foot ceilings. Hopefully your ceilings aren't this high. Something like this, or something, definitely the heaters I make would heat that area without an issue using the butane stove or propane stove. Once again, these can heaters like this, these little cook stoves have been around for a very long time. And it's just nothing but rubbing alcohol. So if you need a way to have heat, and remember, keep it away from anything that burns. I mean, seriously. It is open flame. Now, if I blew this out, the alcohol, I could relight it. But if I just let it set after I blew it out, the alcohol would evaporate. What's burning more or less is the alcohol, not the toilet paper. You can see a little bit of the toilet paper is burned on top. And that's from when the rubbing alcohol starts to dissipate. It will burn like that sometimes. But other than that, it's nothing but the alcohol burning that was soaked into the toilet paper. And it is putting out a decent amount of heat. Not great, but it is putting out enough heat that if you closed off an area, this could keep you warm. Once again, these types of things are for emergency heat only, nothing more. In a bad situation, will this help you? It depends on how big of an area you're trying to heat, how much fuel you have, because this is still considered fuel, and like I said, a lot of things, how cold it is. I'm in Montana. We have snow on the ground. And you can see I have kept my solar panels somewhat cleaned off. So it is cold. Midnight's right there, believe it or not, in his box. This is a very last resort, something like this. But it is an option, okay? This is going to be the very last video I do on these heater things, because you have been given numerous options out there. You can make your own heater, you can buy your own heater, you can use a propane heater, whatever. But in an emergency situation, if you have nothing but what you have in your house, and the person I made the last video for said, well, I want something basically to make a heater that's in my house to produce heat. Well, guess what? This is about the only option you got, is something like this. If you have the alcohol or the drinking alcohol that is so many proof, it has to be a high enough percentage of alcohol to burn. And yes, it is not windproof. Once again, making something like this, and the can's barely lukewarm. Making something like this can help you in a bad situation. You don't have to make any types of heaters if you don't want to, if you don't have the material, if you don't have the stuff. If you have toilet paper, paper towels, something like that, that you can roll up and shove in that can as tight as you can get it, to where you can pour some type of fluid in there. You can make some type of small heater. Now, if you don't want to blow this out, you just stick a plate over the top and it'll kill it, because it suffocates it from air. No air, no heat, no heat, no air, no fire. But this is your last resort right here. Let me make it clear. This is the very last resort you do in a bad situation. If you have to do stuff in the house. Alright, I'm fixing to go. Once again, this is not my design. It is not my idea. This has been around for as long as I was a kid. I have seen stuff like this. I'm sorry about the fan up there. But as long as I've been alive, I have seen stuff like this. People have carried stuff like this in backpacks and, whatever. So, in a bad situation, if you make 3 or 4 of these, if you have the fuel, once again, this is fuel, you can make some of these and produce heat. If you don't have stuff like this, stuff like Everclear, I believe whiskey is a high enough percentage to burn and something like this. But make sure you let that soak in before you light it. You want everything in here saturated, basically. And then just light it and let it burn. That'll give you some heat. Alright, I'm fixing to go. Once again, this is not my idea. It's a simple can stove that you can use in the house if you need heat. If you're going to use this to cook, that's a different story. You have to have your pot or pans raised up high enough to where this gets air and it doesn't choke out. Alright, that means you have to build something that'll go over the top, like your oven rack, and put legs on it that'll raise it up over this can at least 1.5 inches to 2 inches. That way it doesn't choke out and it gets enough air. Okay, that's it. I'm fixing to go. Hopefully this right here is your last resort. But if you need it, it will produce some heat. Just keep an eye on it. And once again, it still needs fuel. Alright, that's it. I'm fixing to go. I know I uploaded a video earlier, and I apologize for 2 today. But for a little can stove, if you can get your pot or pan raised up high enough over it where it doesn't choke out, remember, it has to have air, you can cook with this. You don't have to have anything over it to heat with it. And all you need is a can, some toilet paper or paper towels, and rubbing alcohol or some type of liquid that burns. Once again, do not use stuff that goes in your car. Okay? And that's it. I'm finished to go. Everyone have a good one. Hope this helps someone out. Bye.